Welcome back to another episode of The Only Playbook. I am your host, Sweetcar, and I have Shovit alongside me. We recorded yesterday. We've put week 2 behind us. Hopefully the injuries are also behind us, and we no longer have star players going out. So today we are going to preview week 3, Shovit. We have your start sits. We have your boom busts. We have your hidden gems for your defenses and your kickers, and we are going to give you our weekly pick 'em. How are you feeling heading into week 3, Shovit?
Feeling good. I had to make a decision. I had to get rid of the Dallas Cowboys defense, and I hope that doesn't come bite me, in the rear end. But at this point, Mike Zimmer's just not doing it for the Dallas Cowboys, and so I'm jumping ship. I got the Bills defense, but it's time to start considering some changes as you go on with the season, and that's that big drastic change that a team that I drafted, I'm now going against. But we'll see what happens in the future.
Yeah, I mean, Shisho talks about this all the time about waiting 4 weeks to make changes, but there are some situations that seem a little bit more dire, and it doesn't seem like you can wait 4 weeks, especially if you're 0-2 or if you're injury riddled, right? The players that you're continuing to trot out there that continue to underperform, you may not have the luxury to keep putting those guys out there because digging yourself in an 0-3, 0-4 hole, probably not ideal, and it's going to make it really difficult to come from behind. So I don't fault you at all, especially when it comes to defense. The defenses that we project preseason, the strength of schedules we look at preseason, even just 2 weeks in, you're like, whoa, these teams are a little bit different than I expected them, right? So the strength of schedule being the worst in the league before the season started probably changes 1 week or 2 weeks in when some of these teams that you weren't expecting to be 2-0 or 2-0, or some of these teams that you weren't expecting to be 0-2 are 0-2. So no, I think that makes a lot of sense. I do think the Cowboys defense, just talent-wise, and Mike Zimmer should turn it around. But right now, with a redraft league having 4 bench spots, you're probably not going to have a bench spot for a second defense. So you got to do what you got to do there. Yeah,
they play Baltimore next week. I think Baltimore is 0-2 now. They're looking to, go get in there to get their first win. They're going to give it their all. But the next week's matchup after this week, I forget who the Dallas Cowboys play, but that will be a good matchup. But like you said, with only 4 spots, you got to clear that bench and just think of win now mentality. So I had to get rid of them. But yeah, that was the reason behind that. So other than that, everything else is good, man. How are you?
Yeah, dude, doing good. 2-0 in our league, 1-1 in the other league. 1-1 in my other league, and 1-1 in my dynasty league. My dynasty league had some crazy drama snafu today that I don't even think I need to bore you or anybody else with. I'll just headline by saying it is a completely free league. It is the first year we're doing it. Everybody's intentions was to learn how dynasty fantasy football works. But what ended up happening was this morning, so almost everybody's rostered, right? So your waiver wire is basically nobody. So the only way to get better throughout the season is to trade with people. So one of the guys that joined had Tua as his only quarterback, and he didn't draft a second quarterback. And in redraft, I mean, in this league, I drafted Josh Allen, and I didn't draft a second quarterback either because I just went with like the redraft strategy of if Josh Allen's ever not going to play, like I don't expect him to get hurt, but if he does, I'll just pick up somebody in the waivers. There's going to be somebody, right? It's not like it's a 32-team league. So Tua Tagovailoa got hurt for this guy. He has no quarterbacks. He's about to go pick up a quarterback this morning. The guy he's facing picks up 9 different quarterbacks to roster on his roster, including like Andy Dalton, Malik Willis, like you name it.
Wow.
Bro. And I was just like, on one hand, incredible strategy. If this was a league that was like money or like we'd been playing for years and actually mattered, we're all trying to learn and figure out how dynasty works. Yeah. So for this guy to be just such a, whatever word you want to call him, in the second week or the third week and pick up 9 different quarterbacks to roster, I thought just it was a little bit overboard. I mean, again, I can't fault the strategy, but there's no money involved and we're all trying to learn. Do I think in real life somebody's going to go out and pick up 9 quarterbacks so you can't start a single quarterback? Probably not, because when money is involved, there's going to be more methodical thought process, right? So this is a free league. I'm in a good position. I'm going to bully this other team that's injury riddled, that has no quarterback. So that became like a 3-4 hour drama filled just snafu, if you want to
That is
call it.
hilarious. That's amazing. And you know what? You've now learned so much about Dynasty with that one thing that just happened, though, right? Like you can't pick up players. You got to have backup options. How many bench spots do you get to be able to pick 9 quarterbacks?
Dude, there's too many. You have like 8 bench spots. You have like 4 IR spots. You have like 3 taxi cab where it's like if you need to put somebody into your regular spot and move somebody out, you can do that. So like literally, I think your roster is almost like 28 to 30 people. So they're like the whole idea behind this, and we're going to go off on a tangent, is this is my first year. So if you don't draft well, your only way to improve intra-season is to trade players. Like you can't pick, there's nobody to pick up. So you're never going to get better from waiver wire. So it almost just seems like, I don't know, man. Like I'm not really about this. If you have to hoard the entire NFL on your roster, like, it just seems kind of whatever. But if there's a way where you can reduce the bench spots, you can still have a waiver wire. And then make it dynasty. I think that would be more in line with what I would gravitate towards. But the idea that week to week, if you drafted CMC and Puka in this dynasty league, you have no replacements. If you don't have serviceable backups who actually play, you have nothing. You're literally
SOL.
starting. Yeah. You're starting a guy who's like the third string on his team that may get 1 to 2 carries, you're Ishan basically in a dynasty league and you're starting Kyle Juszczyk as your running back. Like, I mean, that shit's not fun. Like who is enjoying doing that? Nobody. So, and again, did I mention that this is a free league the first year we're doing it to learn how to play dynasty? So yeah. Again.
Hey, so this is so funny that you said this, right? Because I just got informed about a league that Andy's in. He's in our league as well. So there's a guy trying to trade quarterbacks for Jerome Ford right now. And he was asking me, like, should I veto this trade? And the first trade was Jaden Daniels for Jerome Ford. And I was like, well, that doesn't seem very fair. If you are a guy that's receiving Jerome Ford, you're giving away Jaden Daniels, who's going to be a top 5 quarterback. Jerome Ford is getting split carries, but the guy sent another trade, right? So he sent the guy from the Packers. Why am I drawing
Malik
blank?
Willis or Jordan Love?
Jordan Love for Jerome Ford, right? And I'm like, how's this guy this guy just really wants Jerome Ford and he's got all these quarterbacks to dispense. Well, let me tell you his quarterback list that he has. All right. He's got Jaden Daniels, Geno Smith, Derek Carr, Jordan Love, all on his bench. And he's just trying to use them for trade baits. This is a 7-bench league, 4 quarterbacks in your bench, and that's why he can go out and trade these quarterbacks for a Jerome Ford. Where there's upside, but there's also some concerns as well, right? So, that's a strategy. That's the first time I'm hearing about this quarterback hoarding strategy, and it's so funny that you just brought it up in your dynasty league as well. That's wild.
And I assume your league is a redraft league, right? And there's money involved.
And there's money involved.
Totally get it, bro. If you want to be the stickler when there's money involved, yes, every week matters. You're playing against your opponent and you want to do everything in your opponent's power to not let him win. Similar to what I'm doing in our league of record right now, where Ishan may not have serviceable running backs to even start. So I picked up like 4 running backs who I think would be somebody that you could fill in right now, just so he has nobody to start. So like, again, money league, all that shit, that all makes sense, bro. You're playing for a pot. You're playing for something. But this is literally like an educational experience, or what I thought was supposed to be an educational experience. And maybe this is the education that I'm taking away from it, is there are going to be these type of people in your leagues. So get ready for people to hoard 9 quarterbacks. So, all right. So enough about quarterback hoarding. Let's get into what this episode is going to be about. Shovit. Start sits. I was going through the Twitter sphere. I reached out to our friends, people that I think listen to our episodes and stuff and want relevant information on who to start and who to not. So these are the names that I came up with. A little bit different than week 1 and week 2. It's not really like superstar top tier names. And this is kind of what happens when you're injury riddled and you're having to pick between 2 guys that you're completely unsure about. And that's what we're here for. So let's run through these start, sit, shove it. Quarterback position. Justin Fields this week is taking on the Los Angeles Chargers. Would you continue to start Justin Fields against the Chargers when he's been averaging roughly 11 to 12 points a game so far this year? Or would you pivot to the number 1 fantasy quarterback right now, Baker Mayfield, but he is playing the Denver Broncos?
I think these are both not good matchups. Like, these are quarterbacks that you wouldn't want to have to choose between to start. And the reason is the Justin Fields, this offense hasn't really shown anything outside the first half of the Denver Broncos game what the Steelers had. It was not a good game for Fields and fantasy wise, and even the offense as a whole. But the running game was really good. And with Baker Mayfield, the issue with this start for Baker Mayfield is that Denver's not a very good run defense. So game script might be like just run the ball. You've got Bucky Irving, Rashad White. I'm not sure if he's going to play, but they should still utilize the offense. So Baker Mayfield is also a scary start. But out of these two, I'm going to go with Baker Mayfield. I know what I can, there's the upside potential of like a deep bomb to Evans. You've got Godwin. There's just they have shown that they do pass the ball still. They can still be balanced. Whereas with Justin Fields in charge, this may be like a defensive showdown. And who knows if Justin Fields will do well. I mean, he can, but I'm going to go with the safer pick with Baker Mayfield here, who's proven to get points.
Yeah, I like how you started this out, where I honestly think I would probably try to look for an option C. And I know most people probably don't have the luxury of that, especially if you're in a league where players are hoarding 10 quarterbacks, and you certainly don't have that option. But I think the situation, like you said, defensively, I mean, in most all scenarios right now, I would probably be starting Baker simply because the upside that we've seen with Fields from a rushing perspective, while the rushing is still kind of there, they're just not translating. There's no touchdowns happening, right? Like points are not being scored enough to where even if he was getting 60 rushing yards and 1 touchdown, whatever he was giving us passing would just be a cherry on top. Right now, Baker is providing all of that. But like you said, if there's one thing the Broncos have been able to do, I know it's only 2 weeks, and I think one of their matchups was against a really bad team. I can't remember who they played, but they are 4th in the league in passing yards allowed, right? So they are not a team that, as of now, you can pass on, especially because one side of the field completely gets blanketed by PS2. And we saw that with Pickens last week, even though I felt like Pickens technically got the better of PS2, the flag, and then, the offensive PI, and then the pass interferences and whatever, like that really hindered the overall stat line. But I don't think right now that the way the offense for the Bucs works, PS2 is going to shadow on the outside. Most likely he's going to shadow Mike Evans. Mike Evans isn't somebody that roams around. Mike Evans isn't somebody that they use in the slot or they do anything. Like 99% of Mike Evans' routes are boundary routes. And that's what PS2 is able to completely blanket. So my fear is that there's just not enough opportunities for the passing game for Baker to have an effective day. That'll probably lead into my boom kicker of the week because I think the Bucs will have the ability to move the football, just not quite score touchdowns. So I'm with you. I'm with you in the sense that I don't like either one of these, but it's crazy that if I had to pick one in this matchup, I actually would lean Justin Fields. Just because, think about it this way. Do I think there's a world where the Steelers will just go all year without scoring very many touchdowns? They won't score a ton of touchdowns, but that doesn't mean they just won't score touchdowns. Fields hasn't scored a touchdown in his first 2 weeks yet, has he?
He has not. He had a passing touchdown, but not a rushing touchdown.
Right. Passing touchdown, not a rushing touchdown. I don't expect the passing game to be that effective. So if the Steelers are going to want to try to win the game, I mean, yes, Boswell can kick 5-6 field goals, but I'm going to bank on the fact that Fields finds his first rushing touchdown versus Baker is able to get 2 more passing touchdowns against the Denver Broncos defense. But again, I think this is going to end up being next week where we looked at like Jaden Daniels and Patrick Mahomes last week of one guy got 13, one guy got 12. Neither was something that you were excited about, but obviously one takes the cake over the other. Another quarterback matchup here, Shovit. We have Derek Carr, who is quarterback 2 on the season so far. He's going to be at home taking on the Philadelphia Eagles defense. We just saw what Kirk Cousins did to them in prime time, especially on that final drive with terrible, just cushion defense, basically giving up everything at will to the passing game. Would you start Derek Carr against the Philadelphia defense, or would you start Geno Smith against the Miami Dolphins?
I am going with the hot hand, man. I'm going with Derek Carr. Philadelphia can score points, man. And you're going to the Saints defense has been very good, but it's going to be a big challenge against the Philadelphia Eagles. You're going to have to throw the ball. You're going to have to utilize all of these, Clint Kubiak things that you've been doing. Favored Derek Carr as well, right? So there's just a lot going well for this offense. And given that you're playing against another team that also has a really good offense, I think you just have to keep scoring points. So there's an upside for Derek Carr. Geno Smith versus Miami. I'm interested to see how Miami's going to play, and especially in their run defense. The Bills, we saw James Cook scored 2 rushing touchdowns, 1 passing touchdown, lot of rushing opportunities. So will Seahawks do the same? So if that's the issue, then the game script definitely favors Derek Carr as a start over Geno Smith, where they'll run the ball. So I'm going Derek Carr here.
Yeah, Miami is better against the run or the pass. They're middle of the pack against the run. It looks like Charbonnet is probably going to start again with Ken Walker being hurt. Not a very efficient runner, at least that's what we've seen so far. But again, if you're going to lean one way that the offense is going to attack the Miami defense, it's probably going to be run the football. Also, the fact that the Miami offense is going to be without Tua Tagovailoa, I don't know how much that offense is going to hold on to the football. So I expect more football, more time of possession for the Seattle Seahawks. If they're going to control the game, I expect them to run more. So I do also side with Derek Carr. We saw like the secondary for Philadelphia has a ton of promise. We saw Drake London burn the shit out of Darius Slay. He's obviously cooked. So that's already past him. We know Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean are there, but we saw the youngness of both of them. Quinyon Mitchell just very, very handsy, right? He's always trying to go for the ball. Like he's a ball hawker. So sometimes he'll go for the ball, completely miss, and then the guy will be open. We saw that happen one or two times. So I think there is the ability to take advantage of that. We saw what Shaheed's already done to defenses, taking them over the top. If the Eagles try to play two high safeties, I do expect a ton of underneath work for Chris Olave. He finally has probably a big day that fantasy owners are expecting. So I agree with you. I would also lean Derek Carr against Philadelphia, which again, you asked me this 2 years ago. I don't know if there was ever a world where I was like, let's start Derek Carr in fantasy football. So it's crazy how the times have changed. Running back, shove it. DeAndre Swift taking on the Indianapolis Colts, or like I just talked about, Zach Charbonnet, who is going to start for Ken Walker, taking on the Miami Dolphins. Let me kick us off here. I personally actually lean DeAndre Swift. The reason why is the Indianapolis rushing defense is atrocious. Now, Miami's is middle of the pack. They're a better pass defense, but Indianapolis is one of the worst. I know it's only 2 weeks, so the sample size is so small. I actually prefer the fact that Charbonnet will get more of a workload to Swift because we've seen them utilize Roshan. We've seen them utilize Herbert, and we've seen how bad the offense as a whole is. Now, again, I'm still of the belief that this offense will turn it around. The Colts defense has not looked good. So if there's an opportunity for this offense to turn it around, to me, it's this week. So it's a close answer. I don't fault people for taking Charbonnet's workload, specifically if Ken Walker is out. But I personally think the boom side is on DeAndre Swift's side because Charbonnet just hasn't been an efficient runner.
Yeah, the matchup is good for DeAndre Smith, but the matchup is also good for Jackson Charbonnet. And you just, it's hard to trust anything from this Bears offense right now. I want to see it. And then once I see it, I'll be like, I'm all in. But until we get to that point, I'm going to lean Charbonnet. And like I said, the matchup against Miami Dolphins is really good for running back. So I'm going to go Charbonnet here.
Yep. Let's kick it over to the wide receivers. We have Brian Thomas Jr. at the Buffalo Bills, or would you start Dionte Johnson at the Vegas Raiders? Shove it.
Yeah, give me Red Rifle. God, what's his name?
Andy Dalton.
Andy Dalton, yes. Red Rifle, Andy Dalton with Dionte Johnson this week. I know Las Vegas defense is pretty good too, but he's a better quarterback, right? So he's going to be able to get the ball to a guy in Dionte Johnson that is, commands enough volume. I think Brian Thomas Jr., the situation with him is it seems like he's sort of like this, deep threat, boom or bust kind of player. And I don't know if I want to lean on that just yet. He's got tremendous speed, but Buffalo is a tougher matchup to me. So I'm leaning Dionte Johnson here.
Yeah, I'm also leaning Dionte Johnson here. Like we said, the boom upside of Brian Thomas is immense. We've seen that already with his speed and his ability to take the top off the defense. I still don't trust the Jaguars offense. Like I don't know what more we need to see to be like, is Trevor Lawrence really it? Is he not it? Is it the coaching? Is it the lack of coaching? Doug Peterson, at one point was donned as like really, really good. And now that now that the team is struggling, they're saying, hey, maybe Peterson's washed. Like, which one is it? Right. I think at some point, is it a combination of all of it? Like Lawrence is not the, generational quarterback that we thought. He's just an average quarterback. He's surrounded by a bunch of average weapons. And Doug Peterson is an average football coach. So it could just be the fact that this entire team is basically borderline average. But like you said, the one thing that we've seen from Dionte Johnson and even Andy Dalton, the Red Rifle, is that when he plays, he can at least run an offense and he can support a wide receiver one. He did it for years with AJ Brown. It's not like he's a running fast quarterback that with age is now hindering his athletic ability, right? He's a passing pocket quarterback. I went back and I rewatched a lot of that Panthers game because I wanted to be like, what the hell? So I get it that we're benching Bryce Young, but it's been 2 games into the season in a year where they had a complete overhaul of the offense, right? So for them to give up on a first round number 1 draft pick after 2 weeks, the second year in the NFL, again, in a completely new offense from the first year in the NFL, what was it? And everybody initially wanted to point the blame at the offensive line, but the offensive line actually does a pretty good job of protecting Bryce. The receivers do a pretty good job of getting open and separating for Bryce. He just lacks any sort of confidence, even when he's looking directly at the read that's running his route, breaking free, getting open. The ball just either doesn't get there because he's trigger shy to throw it, or when he does throw it, it seems like he's really trying to guide where the football is going, and that loses all of one of Bryce's best attributes, which was his accuracy. So right now, it's just not Bryce. And so the reality is, I think the offensive line is actually pretty average, if not above average. So I could see this offense completely do a 180 where all of a sudden Chuba Hubbard becomes a viable fantasy starter. All of a sudden Dionte Johnson becomes a viable fantasy starter. I don't know that Andy Dalton's ever going to be a viable fantasy starter, but I think he's going to be able to support Dionte Johnson. Maybe he's able to support somebody else. I don't know, but I think things are going to look up here. We know that Dionte Johnson's history has been he demands targets because he's a great route runner and he can get open. So if you're going to bank on that, I still think that is in Dionte Johnson somewhere, and we've yet to see that from Brian Thomas.
Agreed.
DK Metcalf versus Miami or DJ Moore at Indianapolis, Shovit? I'll let you start.
Yeah, this is the same thing with the running back situation with DeAndre Swift. I'm sure that Caleb Williams and this Bears will figure it out. At some point, there's immense talent there. But until I see it, like I said, for the DeAndre Swift issue with the whole Bears offense, DK Metcalf, explosive. I understand the Miami defense is tough, but how do you not start this guy? He's a continuous must start for me. He's in that category of, tier 2 wide receivers, maybe even tier 1, right? So for me, DJ Moore is immensely talented, but with the way that DK Metcalf fits into this offense, give me DK Metcalf at Miami over DJ Moore.
I agree. I absolutely agree. Right now, DK has proven to be able to do it. DJ has not, especially with this offense and this quarterback. It's such a favorable matchup that if you don't have this luxury and you're forcing DJ Moore into your lineup, I think you'll be happy. I think he's going to have a good day. But right now, when you saw a guy get 14 targets and produce 10 catches for whatever and a touchdown last week, especially when he's the number 1, person that they funnel passing to in that offense, right now you have to lean on him, especially with the production that Geno's already shown. So yeah. I also lean DK Metcalf there.
Oh yeah, and I was happy with the DJ Moore, targets as well. Right, I think it was like 7 or 8.
Yeah.
Something like that. So you've got to be happy with that. If he makes that throw at the very end, where I think it was like a corner route, and he just and Caleb Williams misses that. DJ Moore is definitely a valid start, but give me DK Metcalf over him, though.
All right. This one came in from Sandman. He said Xavier Worthy at Atlanta, or if he's clear to play, T. Higgins versus Washington. I think you know my answer here. It's pretty easy, Shovit. I'm going to lean T. Higgins if he's healthy. 2 things. We've already talked about Xavier Worthy. Until he's on the field and demands enough targets, there's plenty of other guys you start over him. And the cherry on top here is T. Higgins is playing the Commander. So if he's healthy, this is the worst secondary in football. This is a no-brainer. You absolutely start him. I think the Bengals are due for a massive, massive bounce back. They're 0-2 Monday Night Football in Cincinnati against the worst secondary in the league. If T. Higgins plays, him, Chase, Burrow, they're all going to explode. So that's a no-brainer for me.
Yeah, I hate to do this, but it's a little bit difficult for me because T. Higgins, you just don't know how he's going to do when he's going to come back from the injury. How many plays is he actually going to be on the field, right? If he's there for most of the time, he's playing like he wasn't ever injured. So that's something you need to monitor, right? Like if he's 100% full send, and it's not an injury that can be affected by play, then yes, you start him. But if not, then go with Xavier Worthy, just because there are other receivers that I always have a tough time saying his name. And Andre, Yosivas, right? Like I think he's had a couple of touchdowns last 2 weeks, so he's been a guy that they need. They've been targeting as well. So there's no really need to use T. Higgins outside of the fact that you're not winning. So I'm a little hesitant. That's why I'm leaning Worthy here.
Yeah, I mean, I think this question is asked with the expectation that Higgins is going to play like a normal, like he's not limited or hindered or anything. And in that case, I think personally to me, this is Higgins by landslide. Like it's not close. Darnell Mooney versus the Kansas City Chiefs, or Chuba Hubbard versus the Vegas Raiders. Again, I'll start us off. I'm going to go Chuba Hubbard here. I think until we've seen enough offense from the Atlanta Falcons, specifically passing-wise, specifically not funneling passes to Ray McCloud, Darnell Mooney is like the fourth option on this offense right now. Yes, there was a lot of encouraging signs that don't necessarily translate to production. He got good targets. There was a lot of times where him and Kirk seemed like they had some miscommunication. And then on the sidelines, you'd see Mooney sit right next to Kirk and they'd be talking. So I think they're like, Mooney seems like he's really, really trying to engage in some form of chemistry, because there were a couple of routes where Mooney got really open. There was one where he came on a motion play, immediately open on the pylon, and it was a bad throw, right? So, and that was the one I think where they immediately went to the sidelines and Mooney went and sat next to Kirk, and you could see them talking about it. So there's some chemistry forming there, but that doesn't mean anything to us until we've seen production on the field. So right now, again, we talked about the turnaround that we expect from the Panthers simply because the quarterback is different. We expect more play action. We expect Dalton to be able to complete passes to open up some form of a run game. So right now, again, sheer volume, the number one running back on that team versus the fourth option maybe on this offense. To me right now, Chuba Hubbard's the play.
Yeah, I agree with you. Darnell Mooney, that was really weird. I felt like he just kind of stopped running at one play, and I don't know what that was all about.
Yeah, but the corner route, right? The corner route where it seemed like it was a perfect pass. You saw him kind of cut it off. Maybe he wasn't expecting the ball to come there, and then he realized the ball came there, and he just
got to keep going, man. That's something Dionte Johnson would do in the Steelers world, and that's just it's terrible. But yeah, hopefully they get it together. But I'm gonna wait and see if that happens, and then start him on my lineup. But for now, give me the running back RB1 Chuba Hubbard for the Panthers.
Wandale Robinson for the Giants at the Cleveland Browns, or Alec Pierce for the Indianapolis Colts versus Chicago. Another Sandman question, man. This is, Sandman's in the weeds when he's asking about Wandale Robinson versus Alec Pierce. He must be getting hit with some form of injury bug. Shove it. You want to start us off here?
Ooh, this is wild, man. Wandale Robinson for the Giants. Man, last week was just a Malik Neighbors show, and I feel like that's going to be consistent. Maybe not as many targets as he got last week, but maybe a little bit less. But Alec Pierce has been playing really well. He's been kind of playing like Michael Pittman plays. And so, I would say, yeah, give me Alec Pierce. I just don't know how many receptions and targets Wandale Robinson will have. So I'll go with Alec Pierce here.
So I lean Wandale Robinson. A couple of reasons. Both the defenses are good. Browns are good, and the Bears are good. But I think the Bears have a better defense right now. I think the Browns are still in some form of shambles. And if we just look at their numbers, Alec Pierce has 2 touchdowns in 2 games, which is awesome. Don't think that's incredibly sustainable. 3 targets in week 1, 7 targets in week 2. So you like that. 84% snap participation, 95% snap participation. So he is on the field more than Wandale Robinson is. Now, here's the reason why I lean Wandale Robinson here. 12 targets in week 1, 4 in week 2. So again, kind of boom or bust, but the Cleveland Browns defense is solid. I think obviously Denzel Ward is going to have to shadow or guard Malik Neighbors. Daniel Jones is going to be running for his life probably most of this game with Myles Garrett. I expect dump offs. I expect him to try to get the ball out of his hands quicker. So do I see a world where Robinson has 6 catches for like 45 yards? Probably. I don't think he's going to get into the end zone. I don't think he's going to have like a crazy day, but I think there will be enough underneath targets for him. Pierce, what we've seen is a deep threat, right? Like Anthony Richardson, who has an insane arm, loves to just throw that ball deep. So if Pierce is underneath that and he catches it, fantastic. But again, I don't think the Bears are a defense that's going to allow a ton of 60-yard bombs. So I don't know that Alec Pierce gets, volume underneath to be able to catch a lot of passes to be viable. It's a bad matchup both ways. If the ideology here is that neither guy is scoring a touchdown, I think Wandale Robinson offers a floor just from catching the ball more, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. Yeah.
Weird tight end question, probably one you would never expect, but here we are. Mark Andrews versus the Dallas Cowboys in Dallas, or are you starting Hunter Henry for the New England Patriots at the Jets on Thursday Night Football? To me, this is pretty easy. Start Mark Andrews. Stop overthinking it. Hunter Henry is not a tight end you should be starting in fantasy. Maybe this year's different, but let's give it more than 1 week of sample size before we throw in somebody that, has been around the block 7 or 8 times.
I think if you don't have Mark Andrews, then you 100% can start Hunter Henry. But with Mark Andrews still in the mix, there was a scare of Isaiah Likely that kind of didn't really fruition into anything in week 2. We saw more Mark Andrews. So things are trending upwards for Mark Andrews. Hunter Henry, he's just getting so many looks that, I guess you can definitely start him. But if you had to choose between one, start your stud-ish guy, Mark Andrews.
He's still a stud to where I think you can use that and start him. Like you said, Hunter Henry actually is viable in a year where tight ends have been really bad. Like I had 1.7 from Parkey last week. I think 2.8 from Taysom Hill the week before. So I would gladly throw in Hunter Henry in my lineup, but not at the expense of benching Mark Andrews. I don't think anybody should do that. All right, that is it for Start Sits. If you have any other Start Sit questions, throw them in the comments, add us at Twitter. Both of our Twitter handles are right there. We're happy to answer anything. Let's move it on to Boom Bust. This week, shove it. My boom of the week is Mr. Jamar Chase for the Cincinnati Bengals. Why is he my boom? Pretty obvious. Same formula as last week. I am fading the Washington Commanders secondary. That is who Jamar Chase is facing off against. He's coming off a game in which he had a visible, frustrated incident with his quarterback on the field. He's coming off 2 lackluster games where he hasn't, I don't think, had double digits in either game yet. The Bengals are 0-2, and now they're back at home, and they're playing Monday Night Football. I don't think there is a better time for a player that is going to absolutely boom the hell out of a week. Like I was confident in Neighbors last week. If Neighbors boomed like the way I expected him to boom, I think Chase has a potential 40 spot in his sleeve that he could potentially put up against this defense. So Jamar Chase is my 100% boom. Just like smash this, take him in every DFS. You probably take him for 100 yards, take him for a touchdown, take him for 7 catches. Like this guy is going to have a awesome week. So Jamar Chase is my boom of the week.
Yeah, that's solid. I know you saw that stat, right? Like teams that have gone 0-2, like only 11% get to the playoffs. But out of one of those teams that went 0-2, Bengals were one of them, and they went to the Super Bowl. So don't count out the Bengals. There's still a great offense, and they'll figure it out. My boom of the play is Zamir White versus Carolina Panthers. All right, if not now, then when? All right. So this is it. Carolina Panthers. I'm fading that defensive line, and Zamir White needs to be the focal point of this. I mean, it doesn't really need to be, but he needs to. I expect him to get the bulk share of the workload in this game against the Panthers. Great matchup. I think Zamir White booms this week.
Yeah, the one good thing about the defensive line for the Panthers, Derek Brown, their defensive tackle, is hurt and not playing. So even more booming for Zamir White. I am starting him over Austin Eckler in my dynasty league, and it's a full PPR league. So that being a full PPR league is the only reason why that was a debate personally, because Eckler seems to catch passes to make himself relevant. But this matchup is so hard to pass up to bench Zamir White. So I'm with you there. My bust of the week, shove it. You're going to love to hear this name. Mike Evans. Mike Evans is my bust of the week. He is going to take on PS2. I already talked about it. The reason why there's more concern with Mike Evans with PS2 than there is with like Pickens or anybody else is, again, Mike Evans is a pure boundary wide receiver. That is like what a island cornerback wants, is somebody who doesn't move. So you can stay on one side. So you can basically force them. You get the sideline as one of your biggest help side defenses, and you're basically just pivoting them to one side. Yes, could Mike Evans catch like a 50-yard touchdown over PS2 because he can moss people? Absolutely. But I think he's going to struggle. I think they're going to have to lean on the run game, the utilization of pass catchers out of the backfield, and Chris Godwin over the middle. So I think Mike Evans is going to be my bust of the week.
You know, one of my biggest downfall in fantasies is ever fading Mike Evans, and I don't wish that upon anybody, and I hope that doesn't happen to you. So for your sake, I hope he is a bust. But man, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there. So for me, my bust is going to be Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones versus the Houston team, Houston Texans. And the reason for that is because I feel like, he had that fumble last week, and he could have gotten to a touchdown, but you can't lose the ball in the red zone. Ty Chandler is kind of stepping up as well for the Vikings. And so that worries me. Complement that with the Houston's defense, which is pretty formidable, rush defense in the league. So I think Aaron Jones doesn't have as great of a day as you'd like for your RB1 or RB2 per se. So Aaron Jones is my bust of the week.
Yeah, that's a tough matchup for him, like you said, with the Houston Texans. So, and Ty Chandler outcarried him 10-9 last week, even though Aaron Jones was on the field more, and I think he was targeted 6 times. So if he can't make his heyday with the pass catching, then you're right. It is a tough matchup for him. Hidden gems. My defense this week that you have to start is going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense against Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos, who has an average depth of throw of negative yards, and his average yards per completion is like 3 to 4 yards. So it's just not good for Bo Nix. It's just not good. I talked about fading Cortland Sutton. I don't want anybody in this team. I don't want Javonte. I don't want Jaleel McLaughlin. I don't want Vele. I don't want Marvin Mims. I don't want Dulcich. I don't want anybody on this offense. They are so dysfunctional right now that, like, I don't know how they're scoring points. They're not going to score very many points. And the Buccaneers defense is good. They have Vita Vea in the middle, so they're not going to be run the football. Jamel Dean is a great cornerback, and I forget their other corner on the other side, but he stepped up and played really well as well. So I think that the Denver Broncos are, quite frankly, just going to struggle to move the football. This could be a massive field goal game. Could be a field goal game on both sides. So that is my hidden gem defense. Let me pivot that right into my kicker, which in this case would have been Chase McLaughlin, but I'm going to go ahead and change that up and say my kicker is going to be Matt Prater for the Arizona Cardinals against the Detroit Lions. Prater, 40 years old, still showing last week that he can bang 50-yarders through. They're playing indoors again, and the Detroit Lions and the Arizona Cardinals have the highest implied point total of the entire weekend on Vegas odds. 52, I believe, is what it's at. So they are expecting a ton of points, which means there's going to be a lot of opportunity for Prater to kick the football. Again, it's indoors. They're not afraid to use him, especially 50-yarders, stuff like that. And we've seen an increase in all of these 50-yarders, increase in kickers kicking the ball more, increase in offenses down as a whole. I think this is a great situation for a high implied total, not necessarily having everything converted into touchdowns. So Matt Prater is my hidden gem kicker of the week.
Solid. All right, so my hidden gem defense, I'm going to start us off with the defense, is going to be the Cleveland Browns against the New York Giants. I'm fading New York Giants right now. Yes, they've got some talent there, but Jim Schwartz and this defense coordinator defense is one of the better defenses in football, and I think that he has a chance to, there's going to be takeaways, opportunities, interceptions from Daniel Jones, sack opportunities as well, right? So I think I'm going to bank on the Browns for me to get those 2 points of interceptions or sacks throughout the game. And then keeping it in Cleveland, my kicker is going to be Dustin Hopkins against the New York Giants. And the reason is I think Dustin Hopkins is as good as the Cleveland Browns offense will be. And I think against this New York Giants team, they have a chance to definitely move the ball, move the chains, get to the, get to field goal range at least. Scores, maybe not. Touchdowns, probably hard to come by. But field goals against the Giants, I think you can definitely get there. And Hopkins is a pretty decent kicker as well. So I'm going to put my money on Hopkins this week.
Yeah, I think the theme for us so far early in the season is we're finding weak link teams and just fading them, right? Like we're finding the teams that are terrible in the secondary. We're fading those, especially for pass catchers and passers, things like that. And I think that's kind of what you have to do because there's not enough of a sample size yet for us to have more information to go off of. So I'm with you. I think Hopkins has a big game. I think the Browns defense is another great streaming option against the Giants. So yeah, I'm in lockstep there. That is it for that segment. We usually have weekly pick'ems, but Shashot seems like he's probably too busy being a doctor, and he has not sent those.
He sent it.
Did he?
He did send it, and he picked the 49ers.
Oh, shit. Okay. My phone is the camera that we are currently recording on, so I didn't get that.
You're good.
All right. So with that being said, so I'll start us off. My weekly pick'em is going to be the Cincinnati Bengals at home against the Commanders. I already talked about it. 0-2 at home, Monday Night Football. You can't be 0-3 and expect to make the playoffs. The secondary, the defense for the Commanders is atrocious. This is a big statement game for the Bengals, so I like the Bengals to come away victorious. You said Shashot is taking the 49ers. Who are they playing this week?
The 49ers are playing the Rams.
49ers against the Rams. That's a great matchup. The Rams are decimated with injuries. Obviously, the core injuries with the receivers, but 4 out of their 5 offensive linemen are also hurt, questionable to play this week. So it's not looking good for the LA Rams right now. So a good fade spot. So Shashot's on the 49ers against the Rams. And Shobit, who is your survivor pick?
Man,
which I need to remind the people, me and Shashot have already lost this week. Shobit, you're 2-0. So for the sake of the podcast, I need you to complete this all season. So think wisely.
Oh, man. Well, then in that case, I got to go with the hot hand and go with the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills are playing the Jacksonville Jaguars. Josh Allen just seems like he's poised in the pocket, knows what he's doing. The running game is doing well. Defense is doing well. Lots of good things for the Buffalo Bills. I think they come out on top against the Jaguars.
Love it. So I have the Bengals against the Commanders. Shoshot has the 49ers against the Rams. And Shovit, you have the Buffalo Bills against the Jacksonville Jaguars. That is going to do it for our weekly pick'em. And that is it for the episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Again, it is a long week. If you are the team that was the CMC Puka or the Debo or the Jalen Waddle or the Cooper Kupp, it seems like the world is falling. But I promise you, it is only 2 weeks in. There are better times ahead for you. The best thing you can do is listen to this podcast so we can continue to advise you on how to get through this injury-riddled first part of the season. Again, if you're watching, hit the like, hit the subscribe. It helps spread the word. If you're listening to us, you can listen to us anywhere you get your podcast platform. Instagram, Twitter, TikTok is where our socials are. That's my Twitter. That's his Twitter. Again, I'm Sweet Car. That's Shove It. We're the only playbook. Good luck in week 3. Take care.